we have a song for the news. Let's hear it right now.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North and South America, and all the ships and clippers at sea. Let's go to press. Flag.
News.
First thing in game news is turns out that Spirit Island is getting a digital tabletop version. All right. As we all know, Spirit Island is a cooperative settler destruction strategy game. It's sort of the the opposite of every colonial game you've ever played. It's just trying to give nature's side of it, as it were. And this game is going to basically be a digital game that we're going to be able to play. I think that cooperative games are great games to play digitally if the AI is up to the challenge. You know what I mean? Because it can take care of a lot of what can feel like fiddly, busy work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the ideal format. I remember on a previous episode, you guys spoke to this a little bit about the whole idea of the having a player be the AI in the game.
Yeah.
And that, depending on the game, that can often not be so much fun because you want to be with the players against the game. And so actually having a computer to be the AI is actually really good. And
even some of the other players, I wouldn't mind an AI being that. There's the alpha player problem in cooperative games to some degree, right? We've all experienced it.
Yeah.
You and I have both been the alpha player problem in in cooperative games.
I try never to be that, by the way.
I do too. I try never to be it too, but I've seen you be it, and I guarantee you that at one point or another I've been it. But it's like everybody has to work together. And sometimes one person just happens to see the pattern and like, oh, guess what? If you do this and you do that, and then when it's my turn, I do this, guess what? We win.
Right.
And everyone else is like, okay, I'm going to go valet my car. You just tell me when you're done.
Yeah. Especially when there's newer players, or it even happened a little bit in Irish Gauge, that one move, and I was like, "Don't you want to go here?"
Well, that's just metagaming. That's different. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
You took advantage of my friend Andrew, but that's all right. Those sorts of things happen. So if you're into it, Indiegogo is doing the campaign. They're currently at almost $18,000. They got 28 days left. And $18,000 is about 45% to their goal.
Yeah, they'll make it.
If you're into it, definitely go check it out at Indiegogo. Spirit Island Digital. All I'll say about it is the review we have here on Game Brain for that is from our own Matt Robinson, who declared it, quote, not a good game, unquote.
It's funny because I've seen the game. I like the theme. I've seen it hit the table at mostly at cons.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I've been like,
have you never played it?
I've never played it.
Really?
And I remember when it first came out and seeing it on the shelf and being like, looks like maybe could be up my alley. But I never actually sat down to do it.
Look, it's just, listen, I don't agree with Matty.
Okay.
He has a thing about co-op games. He is anti-co-op.
I kind of do too.
Pretty much. I get it.
Yeah.
And listen, if you are anti-co-op games, this isn't going to probably change your mind.
Right.
What it is it's a very well put together co-op game that's got a crazy unique theme that really, really works well.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a prejudice against co-op games, the Spirit Island probably is the best co-op game out there, with the sole exception of semi-co-op, which I think is a great improvement on co-op games in the sense that I can't tell you what to do and then this next person what to do because one of us is untrustworthy. The Battlestar Galactica, of course, was the game that began that trend. And to some degree, that's what Avalon and all social deduction games sprung out of that and became that. But I would say that Dead of Winter is another game that is semi-co-op. There's somebody that's working against you, and each and every player has their own personal goals, and those goals will make you look like you are playing against the players when really you're just being selfish for a turn or two. So,
well, I also like games like CO2.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, I'm playing my own game.
Yep.
and there's a definitive win condition for a single player to win. But if there's certain things that all the players don't kind of manage in the game, nobody's going to win.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we can't play CO2 as a group if Paul is there. Because he will not accept the social contract. He will not accept the dude. Everybody else has done something, that was not in their own best interest to make sure that the CO2 doesn't get too high.
Right.
And Paul's just like Exxon. He's like, yeah, so I'm taking my turn. You do what you want to do. But it is one of those things. All right, next up, there is a new miniatures game. Now, I am not a big miniatures guy. I am not, plastic minis. Matter of fact, to some degree, the fancier the plastic pieces in a game, the more I suspect the gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fascinated by this trend, the whole, CMON thing, and how they've just really crushed it and really have, contributed to the state of Kickstarter as a platform, and how much money that they've raised. And there's, I've often thought, I actually thought about doing a white paper on this. And I started taking a bunch of notes and doing some research and stuff. But, this whole idea that there are players out there, there's a segment of the market that is just into basically like the toy aspect of games. They like to play games too.
Sure.
But it's the collectors, these collecting these little miniatures.
Oh yeah.
And there's a whole segment that will just kickstart just based on the concept art and the minis, and I don't think they really care so much about the gameplay at all, and maybe might not even play the game or take it out of the box. They just want the collector's item. Yeah. It's a cool business model. I mean, it's been working.
If it works for you, I guess it's great.
Yeah.
Listen, Alyssa Fadden, who you and I think you met with me from Gen Con, is a professional miniature painter. People will pay her money and send her, and she does the most amazing work. And she's just way into it. And she posts all these little memes about how miniature painters always have or miniature gamers always have 75 miniatures needing to be painted, and yet they're still going out to the store and buying the new unpainted mini. Look, it's a whole lifestyle. I think that games like Eric Lang's games like Rising Sun and Blood Bowl. Yeah. Blood Rage.
Blood Rage, yeah.
Blood Rage are games that are trying to sort of bridge the difference between Euro games and Ameritrash games, right? That are trying to do a little bit of both for everybody. I also think the Star Wars Rebellion and a lot of those sorts of games really do a good job of combining all of those things too. It's just none of those games ever have quite hit the tuning fork for me. I would rather just have a plain wooden cube sometimes. It's not that I want the plain wooden cube. It's just that the games that offer the strategic depth that I'm looking for to some degree tend to be those games. But there is a miniature game that I am looking at right now that I kind of want. I have never wanted a miniature game as much as I want this right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Pilgrim Miniatures versus the World is going to launch on October 15th on Kickstarter. So Scott Pilgrim, if you do not know, was a comic put out by Oni Press. It was you probably know it because there was a movie, and a fantastic movie at that. I absolutely loved how they did it. Yep. Fun as heck. The miniatures look amazing. Yeah. I've only seen a couple of them, but it'll be a big miniature box, and you will either play Scott Pilgrim or Scott Pilgrim's friends, and you will be battling evil X's. And so it's a miniature territory. It's Warhammer in the Scott Pilgrim world. Yeah. I think it's such a fun idea. I'm dying to do it, and it looks like the miniatures are pre-painted, which is a real bonus for casuals, as I would definitely categorize myself. Yeah.
I think it'll do well. I think it's smart. I think there's a lot of IP out there that would do really well. I've been thinking about for a while now because people are still really fascinated. There's a cult classic, The Last Dragon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Show enough, minis.
Oh dude.
Like come up with a a whole host of, I don't know, demon or kind of enemy characters besides the main characters that are in there.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they did that. Again, a lot of these games, I think when they do them, they're not very, very good. There's the Big Trouble. Did you ever play the Big Trouble in Little China?
You know what? I looked at it. I watched it being played at Gen Con the last time we were there, actually. It was about to come out, and I smelled what it was, and I was like, "Oh man!"
Because it's such a great IP.
Just a little more work, and this could have been amazing. It's still not bad,
right?
It's not terrible. It's just not great, and it could have been great.
Yeah, and there was a Dark Crystal one, which I love that IP too, and.
Well, I will say something. Cryptozoic is a company that has put out several Rick and Morty games.
Yeah.
I cannot speak to anything except Total Recall. But Total Recall is not only my favorite Rick and Morty episode, it's a great game. Matt talked about it, I think, a couple episodes ago when we were talking about underrated games. His number one underrated game was Rick and Morty Total Recall. It is a social deduction game that is fun and anarchic and plays really well and may be the best licensed product of the last so many years, and nobody knows about it.
Wow.
That's the problem. The problem is that when you go the extra length and you come up with the good game, does it sell any better than the one that you didn't?
Right.
It's an open question.
Yeah.
It's an open question. But we will see. Anyway, Scott Pilgrim coming out October 15th on Kickstarter. Please check it out.
Yeah, I think that one will crush. I think they'll do really well with it. There's a lot of Scott Pilgrim fans out there.
Oh yeah, listen, if you're going to get me to buy a miniature game sight unseen, you've hit upon something. Really have. Next up, we don't know anything about this except that we want to announce it. Cole Worley sent us a little message here at the podcast saying, "Hey, I'm coming out with a game called Oath: Chronicles of Empire and Exile." Now, when there are 5 times as many words after the colon than before the colon, I sometimes question how that game is going to be. But I will tell you what little I know about this. And this is Oath is a 1 to 5 player guide where 1 to 5 players guide the course of history in an ancient land. We take on the roles of agents, bolstering the old order, or a scheme to bring the kingdom to ruin, which sounds like maybe Hidden Traitor, something along those lines. The consequence of one game will ripple through those that follow, changing what resources and actions in the future, which tells me legacy. If players seize control by courting anarchy and distrust, future players will have to contend with a land overrun by thieves and petty warlords. So it sounds like a legacy game, but he does make some little hints here where he says, there are no fancy production tricks, app-assisted mechanisms, or production gimmicks. The game can be reset at any time and doesn't require the same group from one game to the next, which is really interesting. Yeah. I mean, on that shelf over there behind you, there is not Pandemic Legacy, but is Betrayal Legacy.
Okay.
Matt bought me that for my birthday, which was 10 months ago now.
Yeah.
Never been cracked.
Wow.
Never been opened. And why? Because if you start playing a legacy game, you have to keep playing a legacy game, right? You got to play it over and over and over again. And when we've got, we average 7 to 9 people at most of our game nights, right? How are you going to do that? How are you going to, you have to basically pick a whole other night.
Yeah.
And have it be just that and run a campaign, kind of like running Dungeons & Dragons, which I am down for. But I guess part of me is that if I'm going to do that, is it better to play a board game or is it better to just play a great role-playing game, which is kind of more fun?
Yeah, it's a commitment. I did one, and I have to say I wasn't thrilled with it and ate up a lot of my game night time.
Which one did you?
It was the one with the pirate theme one. I can't remember the name
Seafall?
of it. Yeah, Seafall.
Seafall, yeah. Seafall was it. I have not heard good things.
Oh man. And it's like it's one of those games where, I fell behind in the points, and there really didn't seem like a strong mechanic to kind of catch up. And so it was just like, I know I'm losing this game for 10, 11, 12 sessions.
That's bad.
And,
That
and,
is
and the gameplay was really not that interesting. You know,
I
I love the idea of it. I think there could be cool, and I heard great things about Pandemic Legacy.
I have to. First season of Pandemic Legacy, I never played the second, but first season of Pandemic Legacy is wonderful. I mean, it tells a fantastic story, and the game is still mostly Pandemic, which itself is a fun game to do repeat plays of.
Right.
Which I think is what you should want. So to come up with a game, if Cole has really done what he's saying he's done, which is to come up with a game that's a legacy game, but in which the same players do not need to play from time to time.
Right.
Each time, and that it changes the state of the game, but doesn't require everyone to know everything that has happened before then.
Yeah,
that's a pretty great idea, and if he can pull it off, he might just have solved one of our main complaints and one of our main problems of getting legacy games to our table. So, Cole, best of luck to you, man. Yeah, listen. We like Root. We love Pax Pamir. So I like John Company quite a bit. So bring it, Cole. We're here. We're waiting for you. Next game is something really, really interesting to me. This is a game called The King's Dilemma. The King's Dilemma is an interactive narrative experience with legacy elements featuring branching storylines leading to many possible finales. What it is, I'm going to describe it to you, and then I'm going to tell you where it comes from, because I'm pretty sure I know where it came from. Okay. Every player, there are 12 player mats, and each one will be a house or a family that you're playing, and it will tell you a little bit about your family, and it'll give you a few special goals that are goals for you. Then you will get a card, and you will get to draft a card, and that's an agenda card. Am I going for incredible wealth? Am I looking for balance in the kingdom? Am I going for corruption or this and that, the other thing, which will affect that? And each play, you'll start with packet 0. There are 74 packets of little envelopes in the box. Wow. You open the first one, and there are a bunch of cards in there. And you will go through the cards, and each time the card will give you a choice. The King's Dilemma is because these are all dilemmas, right? What do? There are these people coming to the kingdom. They're strangers. They have weapons, but they claim that they're this. Are they infiltrators? Are they not? What do we do? Do we disarm them, or do we let them pass? Okay. Right? Mm-hmm. In one situation, the wrong decision could be to let them pass because yes, they're spies and they're going to foment rebellion in your kingdom, right? Or the wrong choice could be to disarm them because they are, they're diplomats from a culture that is very different than ours, and now you've insulted them, and you're leading our nation to the brink of war with somebody else, right? And all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And much like Choose Your Own Adventures, the decisions that you make will affect what card you go to next, or sometimes even which next packet to open up. But also, it is going to change the metrics of the kingdom. There is a central board that has the country's stability, which is a lever that goes up and down. The country's wealth, the country's science, the country's several different attributes of the country, which will be going up and down based on these decisions, based on these things. So what I think this game is did you ever play the app called Reigns?
No.
Okay, so there's this there's this game that was it's a swiper game. So you really cheap graphics, really super easy. Basically, it's just a whole bunch of cards that are in an iPhone app.
Right.
And it's you are a king, and you want to let your reign extend as long as possible, right? Mm-hmm. So the gesture comes to you and says that the banking minister is corrupt. The banking minister comes to you. Do you swipe left and agree with what he wants, or do you're either saying yes or no to every single decision? Yeah. And after you do, you see the metrics of your kingdom going up and down, and you can to some degree predict what they're going to be, but not entirely. Yeah. And what happens is invariably you get killed, or the king gets deposed, or something along happens, and your reign is ended, and then you start the next reign, and you're just constantly doing reigns of kings, seeing how far you can get and how long you can get. And when you make certain choices, you are adding new cards into the shuffle of your particular deck because you're unlocking adventures or little side things and all that sort of stuff. That's basically what King's Dilemma is. And actually, there's a Reigns game. They're turning it into a board game that's coming out in 2020 by Bruno Feduti, who is a good designer.
Yeah, I like Bruno.
I will say, though, that looking at that a little bit and looking at this, King's Dilemma looks more ambitious. It looks like if it works.
Yeah.
And I just got to say that, if it works, because these choose your own adventure things they're tricky beasts.
Yeah.
You and I have both worked in VR, and me more on the writing side, but I can tell you that writing these things and having branching pathways that all feel valid, that all feel interesting, and don't blossom out and balloon out into a completely unwieldy mess, right?
Yeah.
That have ways of, I'll say, tricking you into thinking you have agency when in reality we're leading you back to similar pathways to some degree. Has to happen in these games. I don't know. It's one of those things that as a writer and as a VR writer, it's kind of a game that I think I need to get. And I think we need to try out. But it certainly seems really kind of interesting. And last, before we get to the Essen preview, Pret-a-Porter has just come out. People are getting their deliveries right now. Now, this is an older game from 2010. Did you ever?
I did.
Yeah?
I did. I enjoyed it.
Tell me about it.
It's a fact. I only played it I think once or twice.
Okay.
But it's basically like a fashion simulator from what I remember.
Sure.
You're a designer and I don't even remember the particular mechanics, if it was worker placement, or I just remember like a kind of a very complicated. It was a lot to wrap my head around, and I don't know if that was just more because it was a complicated game, or just because where I was in my kind of journey with Euro games at that point.
Well, it is a worker placement, and it's an economic game a lot. There's loans and accountants and contracts and things like that, right?
Yeah, pretty. It's from what I remember, it was pretty complicated. I did enjoy it. I definitely didn't hate it when I played it. I thought the theme was interesting and unique for a board game, and I always kind of had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to try it out again. So I'm curious to see this new version. Looks like the design of it and the art has been pretty upgraded. So.
Yeah, with real designers designing the clothes and things like that.
Wow.
Which sounds fantastic to me until you find out that no female designers no female clothing designers were used in the game. Which to me is like, oh, come on, guys, you're so close to being across the line. I mean, it's a great idea to use real designers and real art. I'll say modern art has had a number of recent editions of it that have used actual famous painting series and things like that as the art for the game, which I think it's the same thing as this.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. But come on, guys, there are tons of amazing women designers out there that are that are burning up the clothing world. Just get somebody decent in there to do that. That would have really kicked it over the top. But Pret-a-Porter is a very well regarded game from all the way back in 2010. I'm glad that it's out again. Sorry that there's this one little blip with it, but I'm looking forward to getting it back to the table.